We have identified our trading opportunity. We are interested in entering into a long trade as price bounces out of this trough, which is a trough of at least sequence cycle magnitude on our 5-minute trading chart, or whatever chart you are trading. But this is, of course, the 5-minute chart that we are looking at. There is our nest of lows. Here is our potential trough that has formed. We had a series of targets that were reached as price came down into that trough, including this interesting 80-day cycle target from the daily chart. And so now it is time for us to consider our entry into the trade. The process of entering into a trade requires price to interact with the signal cycle FLD. Here it is here on our chart. We are, of course, expecting an A category interaction, which should be an acceleration point. Because of the fact that the FLD will often cause resistance to price, we do not set our entry at the level of the FLD. That would be foolish. Occasions like this, we might be stopped into long trades, and you wouldn't want that to happen. So we need some kind of interaction to happen with this FLD. This arrow over here is for the current bar, or in this consideration, the next bar that we are now trading. And so you might consider setting an entry level over here, which is the high of the previous bar. But I should point out that if price exceeds that high, it might reach up and only touch the FLD. And so that would not be recommended in this situation. You've got to be careful of the fact that price can touch the FLD without actually providing us with the signal that we need. And so let's step forward one bar at a time and consider our possibilities. Now, we had a fairly muted price bar. You can see it's what's called an inside bar. It sits within the price range of the previous bar. There is our arrow. So there is the level of the FLD on the next 5-minute bar. Now we have a potential entry opportunity. Why? Because if price gets above the high level of this bar, as you can see over here, it will have crossed up above that FLD. And so this is when you can start considering entering a stop entry order. The exact entry that you use is very much a personal choice. If you're an aggressive trader, you might identify this as your opportunity and set your entry level over here at the level of that high. If you are a more conservative trader, then you might not do that. You might wait for price to cross the FLD, close above the FLD, or with the median price above the FLD, and only then enter at the high of that bar. It is very much a personal choice, and as you become more familiar trading with the FLD indicator, you will discover what approach works best for you. Another matter to deal with when it comes to entry is, are we going to make a single entry? In other words, enter everything we have on that bar, purchase our 10 contracts or however many contracts we want to purchase of this particular instrument at that level. That's called a single in entry. Or do you want to do what's called scaling in? In other words, you might enter a small portion of it, 1/10 of it, perhaps over there, and then do what's called rewarding price for good behavior, and enter as price moves up, hoping that it does move up, enter more and more trades. A comparison of those entry methods is beyond the scope of this tutorial course, but I thought it was worth mentioning here because it's something that you should consider. Because of the fact that as price moves up, we hope to see several targets, you will probably want to close some trades at each one of those targets. And so you might want to consider trading in such a manner that you can close some of your trades as you reach those targets on the way up. Let's step forward and see what happens on the next bar. And price has crossed up above the signal cycle FLD. That is what we needed. If you had set your entry level over here, you would have already been stopped into a trade. If you'd waited for price to close above the FLD, you would now be entering into a trade, perhaps at market price. We have a target for the 100-minute cycle over here. We are still feeling optimistic about our trade because of the fact that the mid-cycle FLD provides further acceleration points. And so we have effected our entry. It's as simple as that. An entry is determined by the way in which price interacts with the FLD. When you're trading a long category interaction, an A category interaction, or an E category interaction, you will use the same process. You will watch price as it approaches the signal cycle FLD. Don't set your entry level at the level of the FLD, as I've already warned several times, but you will look for an entry opportunity, such as we had here, with this high price providing a level that was clearly above the FLD, or by waiting until price closes above that FLD and only then entering into your long trade. Having entered into your trade, the next thing that you need to do is you need to consider trade exits. Where are you going to exit from your trade? And we're going to be looking at that in the next video.